the universal structure and the mathematics that we're playing inside this matrix in is not right. But when you plug people back into the spiral, the true spiral of the universe, then people's bodies change. The healing takes place. Their frequency rises. It's very quick. But people are playing around with false code and it doesn't work.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And this has been a long time coming, and I'm really, really excited to have this guest on the podcast today. I want to welcome to the podcast Jerry Sargeant, who is the founder, creator, and facilitator for a profound method to awaken a resonance that is not of this world, star magic. And furthermore, I'm going to get him to explore it. Welcome to the podcast, dear friend.
Thank you for having me, Star Brother. It's good to be here, man.
Yeah, man. Man, I'm feeling good like I knew I would. Just hang out a little bit longer, you know? So I would love you to just share with the audience just a little bit about yourself leading up to this point. I know you have an incredible story. You filter it or give as much as you want to embellish and share with the audience, because my goodness, when you hear Jerry's story for the first time, yours going to drop, quite frankly.
Thank you, brother. So yeah, I mean, it's awesome to be here. Very grateful for the time and the opportunity to share with you, your audience, you know, everyone that's listening. So yeah, I mean, now we travel the world, you know, helping people evolve, grow, expand, step into their power. You know, we're all about empowerment and people kind of stepping into their superhuman potential. You know, we've trained thousands of people in star magic, you know, across the world in 60 plus countries, from 8 years old to 98 years old. And we've seen so many people from all different walks of life step into that goddess frequency and own who they are. And so, you know, for us, it's just magical seeing that transformation. And we're helping people tap into that source code, that love code, that oneness, that unity. And it's amazing. And this is my life now. Like, but it didn't used to be like that, as you kind of alluded to. So, you know, for many years, I was working like a criminal. I was a criminal, you know, worked drug smuggling and, you know, different commodities, bank fraud, all of that sort of stuff. As a child, I was fostered, I was adopted. My first foster parents abused me. My adoptive mother used to beat me. First school teacher beat me. I had an interesting relationship with women, you know, coming into this world. My birth mother, who I found when I was 25-ish, she told me like the full script of what happened when I was born. And she gave birth in a home, didn't tell her mum and dad that she was pregnant, told them she was going to college, went away to give birth to me. When it was time to give birth, they took her into this kind of room, dark, dingy, left her there screaming for hours. When it was time to give birth to me at 3:50 in the afternoon, which is an 8 number, my whole life's full of 8s. I was born on the 8th of March at 3:50, all of this stuff, but it's a whole other thing. But when it was time to give birth to me, 2 men in black masks walked into the room, a lady in a black mask, cut her vagina with a big pair of scissors, ripped me out, went and stuck me in another room. I was crying. They left her screaming and bleeding for hours. And then they kind of came back in and stitched her back up, no medication. And that was the last time we saw each other until like 25-ish years later. So my life was kind of interesting to start with, kind of like full of all this trauma, which I've kind of been working through and dealing with. But the reason I kind of mentioned that stuff at the start is because I went on this real dark road through my life and ended up coming into this path where we're helping so many people change, you know, transforming their own lives. And I feel that when I came onto this planet, that they tried to stop that happening. I came here for a very specific reason, to share star magic with the world, but other forces tried to derail that and try and stop that. At the same time, these forces that took me on this darker path for many, many years also upskilled me. I learned so much. And now I get to connect with people from all walks of life. And if it wasn't for those earlier experiences, then I wouldn't be able to connect with such a wide variety of people. Whether someone's a lawyer or a drug addict or a school teacher or a fireman, anyone, I can sort of like, you know, I'm a chameleon. I can blend into to be with them in their own energy field and help them move from there to where they need to be to grow and evolve and be an empowered human. As I said, I was kind of into this criminal way of being, and I did that for a number of years, and I loved it. I didn't have any kind of like, you know, like idea of change and even thought patterns of like, you know, I want to get out of this, because I was young, I was earning loads of money, I could do whatever I wanted to, and you know, I felt like I was free. I wasn't free, but I felt like I was free. From a materialistic kind of standpoint, I could kind of buy anything. And so this was my life up until around 2004, 2005. I was living in Tenerife in the Canary Islands, working for a criminal organization. There was a lot of like bloodshed and gang warfare and stuff like that. And I kind of, I got out of there in 2003. My daughter was born with my ex-wife, Leia. Leia was my daughter. Laura was my ex-wife. Leia was born. She couldn't get a passport because Laura didn't have a passport, because Laura was Romanian. She left Romania without a passport. So I'm stuck in this kind of environment. There's a lot of crap going on. It's dangerous, and I needed to get my wife and, well, my wife to be, who is now my ex-wife, and daughter out of the country. So I had to smuggle them back into England. Got back into England, got married, and then set up a property business. And we made millions in the first year or so. And then the property market took a downturn. By that point, my son Josh was born, 2004. And the property business fell apart. We just lost everything. Our clients lost everything. It was a crazy time. We got kicked out of our property, on the street. Mrs. 2 kids, like, lost all the money. Like, everything's gone. Houses. I was minusing money to the banks, and so I went back to smuggling drugs again. Went back to bank fraud. Went back to all of that kind of stuff, because it was what I knew, and I knew I could generate money quickly. Moved into some accommodation. A new house, rented it, and I'm watching TV one evening, and Laura comes downstairs and says, you know, I'm seeing all these dark images and hearing all these dark voices, and when I'm pushing the pushchair down the road in the morning, something's trying to make me push the car into the pushchair into the cars. And I looked at her and thought, sounds a bit nuts, you know, because I'd never really experienced anything like this. Like, you know, the other side of this physical world was all I knew. So I said to her, what do you want to do about it? So she said, I want to call my friend. So she called her friend that was a priest. The priest comes around the house, a lady. She's putting crosses up and dicing the house. And I'm sat there thinking, this is like something out of the poltergeist, man. This is nuts. Anyway, she calms Laura down. Laura goes to bed. Next day, I go and see my friend. And this friend is someone that I met in Tenerife when I was working in this criminal organization. If I hadn't have gone there, I'd have never met him. And so I'd have never met this person that he was about to introduce me to. So there's so many kind of like intricate kind of like details all the way down the timelines in the past that are so perfectly orchestrated too. So he ends up giving me the name and telephone number of this lady who became my first spiritual teacher. Anyway, I end up calling this lady. She doesn't answer the telephone. She calls me back a little bit later, and I tell her the story about what happened, and she asked me where I lived, and I told her 316 Richmond Road. It was the only bit of the address. And she said to me, oh yeah, have you been knocking some walls down in the house? And I said, well, no, we rent the property, but the previous owners clearly built an extension. She said, yeah, you got an angry old man in your house. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, an angry old man. So I'm going along with it, and I say to her, okay, we got this angry old man. What are we going to do about it? She goes, well, I'll get rid of him for you. I said, brilliant. When can you come round? She goes, oh, I don't need to do that. I can do it from here. And she lived the other side of the country. So I'm thinking, this just sounds nuts. Anyway, I put the phone down. I go home. I speak to Laura, and I said, listen, I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I spoke to this lady about what happened last night. And she reckons there's an angry old man in the house. And Laura turns around to me and goes, yeah, I know. I've seen him. So I'm thinking, right, you've seen this angry old man. This lady's telling me she's seen this angry old man. You've got no common friends. There must be some truth to it. So I phoned her back up. I said, listen, I don't know what you do, but I've got to come and see you. Like, I'm like a dog with a bone. Once I get a hold of it, I need to find out everything. So anyway, I go up and see this lady, and she regresses me into a past life. And I had this first past life regression, and it actually healed this deep wound in me. And so anyway, I was hooked, man. I was like a drug addict with past lives. I was like, I need to come and see you again. So I was going to see her like every week, 2 or 3 times. She taught me how to remote view, how to bring my light out of my body and travel, how to communicate telepathically, like how to do shadow work, all of this stuff, go in and rescue souls from different realities. Like it was a massive kind of springboard. Now, around the same time as having this experience and meeting her, I was in Romania with my ex-wife and children in a car. We're in a taxi going to Bucharest airport early in the morning, and I'm asleep. Missus and kids are in the back. I hear this loud crash. I open my eyes, there's glass and winds, the taxi's swaying from side to side, and I think, man, we're in a bad accident. We're either going to hit the oncoming traffic or the car's going to flip. And then suddenly we came to a stop, and I look around, there's no other cars. The taxi driver, he looked petrified, like he you know, very, very concerned. I look in the back, Alea's underneath the driver's seat, Laura's got Josh in her arms, and both their mouths are full of glass. And there's a hole in the windscreen, and there's blood dripping down my face, but I'm not bleeding. I think, what's going on? So I get out of the car, I look about 30 meters up the road, and there's 2 ladies lying on the side of the road. One of them's got her ankles cut clean off. The other one's screaming next to her, and about another 100 meters up the road, there's what looks like a dead body. What happened is these 3 ladies were crossing the road. The first one's hit the car clean on. She came through the windscreen, smacked me in the face whilst I was asleep, got sucked out over the car and died. Second one, ankles cut off, and the third one's physically okay. A guy had come out from a nearby factory. So I thought, what can I do? Her ankles are on the floor. The other lady's screaming. I was just fixated on what looked like a dead body. So I get closer, and I see this energy hovering above, which I now know was the lady's soul. I'd not really seen anything like that up until this point. So I'm shaking my head like I want to see it, but I don't really want to see it. Like I'm trying to get it out of my head, but it won't go out of my head. So I'm getting closer and closer, and this energy just disappears into the ether. By that time, I'm looked down over her head, and you know, she's mangled, like her legs are wrapped up over her head. It was like someone had taken an old car to the scrap heap. Like whatever was in the body, it was like, fuck that, I'm off. I don't need it anymore. You know, it just gone on its merry way. And it was like the universe smacking me around the face and saying, Jerry, wake up. We're so much more than these physical bodies. We're atoms, we're molecules in continuous movement, we're space, we're energy. You know, stop doing what you're doing. There's like all this stuff in like one kind of smack around the face. And I remember looking up. I don't know what I was looking up to, but I remember saying thank you. And I wanted a whiskey and a cigarette. I don't know why I wanted a whiskey and a cigarette, but that's just what I felt like. I don't even smoke cigarettes, and I don't drink whiskey. And so that was the kind of experience. Then a few months later, Laura's lying on the bed, and she says to me, oh, you know, I've got a bad headache. It was, you know, bad migraine. And I thought to myself, I can take this out of your head. I don't know why, but I went over and I looked in her head, and I could see the headache. It was green. So I grabbed it and pulled it out. And then loads of these kind of little things started happening. To cut a long story short, loads of stuff happened. We ended up moving to New Zealand. And when I went to New Zealand, I met an old guy. He taught me how to meditate. I had some encounters with Jesus and different beings, Saint Germain. Then one day I'm meditating in this kind of copper pyramid in my mate's garden. He taught me how to meditate with my eyes open. And I'm there one day, a little space pod lands in the garden. There's a blue being inside of it. I bring my light out of my body, go and jump in the craft, and we fly through this tunnel like a portal for 4 or 5 seconds. Came out the other side. There's water, there's a beach. I get out the craft, walk up the beach, and I meet these blue beings, like 200 of them-ish, loads of them. And I knew they were Lyrans, never heard of Lyrans. I knew I was an Alpha Centauri, but I'd never heard of Alpha Centauri. But I just started to know this stuff. So anyway, they hugged me, and the love was just incredible. You know, the love was like, it was just, I'd never experienced a love like it. So anyway, they hugged me, we finished the hug, and then they kind of parted away, and one of them led me up the beach, and we went through some trees, through a jungle, to this building made of light. When we get inside, there's one of these old blue beings. And I always liken it to meeting it like a Native American Indian. You go to an Indian reservation, not that I've been to one, but you meet like a chief, like an elder or something. It was like meeting one of those from this civilization. It didn't look really old. but you could tell it was ancient. It was, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of years old. And it got me to kneel down on the floor. And when I knelt down on the floor, all of this orange light started downloading into my crown, and it was full of geometry. Not the kind of geometry that you see in the textbooks here. It wasn't solid. It was fluid and moving and spiralistic, and it downloaded into my crown, went on for a little while. I don't know how long it happened. Could have been a minute. It could have been 10 hours. I don't know. But when it stopped, two of these lions picked me up underneath my arms, and they frog marched me in this light body form back towards the craft, stuck me inside, flew me back through the tunnel, back into the garden. So I get out of the craft and go and get back in my body. And then I was like, this is amazing. What's next? And nothing happened. I was waking up every day. Nothing was happening. I was like, man, like, come on. Like, what's the next piece of the puzzle? And then one day I wake up and I'm like, I need to get back to England. I don't know why, but I have to go back. We just moved to New Zealand. We couldn't get any further away from England. So the missus and kids were like, you're nuts. Like, they loved the school. She was happy. We set up a health and fitness center, like a mixed martial arts gym, a strength and conditioning camp. And it was going really, really well. So for me to tell them that I wanted to go back, they just couldn't believe it. But anyway, I pestered the shit out of them because I knew that it was the right thing to do. And then after a while, we put the gym in charge with this manager. We got all the stuff from the house, put it into storage, jumped on the plane and flew home. When we got back, I mean, loads of things happened, but a couple of the main ones were I was out running one morning and I see these fairies, okay, and they're around a tree. And I stop and I'm looking at the fairies, and then an angel comes down. The angel goes, my name's Archangel Gabriel. You need to write a book. I said, all right, what's it called? He goes, it's called Into the Light. It's about your life. So I ran home. I opened up my computer. I wrote this book in like 4 weeks, published it. As soon as I published it, I started seeing all this code, and it was the same code that came in my crown. Yeah, down on Alpha Centauri, on Lyra. And this code, this fluid moving geometry that was everywhere, it's from a different kind of time and space. It's from outside of our kind of universal structure. Like, this code that we're playing around with here is very straight. And the code that comes from there is not. It's fluid. It's like a spiral. And we'll come on to this in a bit when I'm kind of finished telling the story. But this code is very important because the universal structure and the mathematics that we're playing inside this matrix in is not right. But when you plug people back into the spiral, the true spiral of the universe, then people's bodies change. The healing takes place. Their frequency rises. It's very quick. But people are playing around with false code and it doesn't work. But anyway, I'm seeing all this code in the space. And I'm asking my guides, what am I supposed to do with this? They said, you need to meditate more, Jerry. You're just being lazy. So I was like, okay. So I started getting up every morning with my son, Josh. And we were going to these ancient mystery schools underneath the pyramids in our meditations. We went every day, 2 hours for 9 months. And this being, okay, who was Thoth, was getting these scrolls and opening them up and showing us all these codes. And it was the same spirals and codes that I was seeing that came down, that was in the space and came down in the orange download. And he was just showing us how to use them to heal people, how to re-engineer people's mathematics, how to travel multi-dimensionally, all of this stuff. And so people started coming into my life that needed healing. And I was like, let me just see if this stuff works. And it was working. I was like, shit, man. You know, maybe I could actually turn this into a business and like earn money properly, you know, like legally, you know, like for probably one of the first times in my life. So I went to a healing exhibition, and I went with my daughter, Alea, and we put down my books were there. I gave a little talk, and I got an Excel spreadsheet and just had these little cards made up saying energy healing. There was no star magic back then. And I was saying to people, listen, put your name down, and at the end of the weekend, I'm going to draw 3 names out of the hat, and you get a free healing if your name gets drawn. Anyway, about 70 or 80 people put their names down. I phoned them all on the Monday morning and said, you've won the prize, just so I could practice, because I wanted to see how good this stuff was, you know. So I was practicing all these people, and it was working. So I thought, you know what, you know, we'll do something with this. You know, I was going to start a business, but the drugs and the fraud kept pulling me back. You know, this darker side of me. I was still kind of got involved in some of this at this point. Now, what had happened when I moved back from New Zealand, I got arrested at the passport office trying to get a new passport for me and the kids. And I was arrested for conspiracy to defraud the Bank of Scotland and holding a false travel document. So anyway, I'm going to court. I'm looking at a long prison sentence. And I say to the universe, listen, you get me off this. I promise you I'll do this healing stuff. So when I went into court, the judge walks out, and the judge has his two accomplices, two women. One of them had wings on her back, and she looked at me and winked. And I was like, no way. Like my intuition was like, you're going to get off this. But my mind was like, no way. The prosecution gave their side of the story. And made me, they brought stuff up from when I was 12, 13, 14 years old. Like they drilled right in to get everything up. I was like, no way am I getting off this. My solicitor gave my side of the story. They went out, they deliberated, come back in 40 minutes later. I'm stood in a bulletproof dock. You know what I mean? Like completely, like did everything to intimidate me as much as they could. They asked me to stand. I get up. The judge on my left looks at me and winks again. And they said to me, listen, Mr. Sargeant, we can see that you're a changed man. We're going to give you a 1-year conditional discharge and an £80 court fee. And I was like, but that was it. I knew that it was star magic all the way then, you know. So we started Star Magic in 2016. When we started it, the same being that took me in the craft to Alpha Centauri came to visit me again in England, you know, when I was meditating on a hill in Gloucestershire, where I used to live. And I'm looking out and I see the town and the city, and it just disappears. And I see all these orange lights around the Christ consciousness grid of the planet. And this being says to me, they're healing centers. You've got to build them. I said, okay, if I build them, who's going to work in them? He said, we've got to train people. So I ran home. I wrote a book called Healing with Light Frequencies, The Transformative Power of Star Magic, and wrote a training program. So this is like mid 2016. And in February 2017, we did our first training, and people turned up from all over the place. Australia, Canada, America, Egypt, India. I was like, I remember stood at the front of the classroom one day when I was like, fuck are you guys doing here? Like, I just couldn't believe all these people had turned up, you know? But anyway, I did the training. It was amazing. People loved it. And since then, we've trained thousands of people in all these different countries. And we're in the process of building our first healing center in Transylvania and Romania. And yeah, I mean, that's the machine gun version of my story. There's loads more to it, but that's the nuts and bolts. And so it's been a kind of a 180, really, going from, you know, doing all that stuff to where I am now. Yeah.
I mean, I need the audience to understand. I mean, most of my students and OGs of what I teach are very, very in tune with frequency. And so they can feel this stuff. They can feel your presence. They can feel it. It's palpable. It's expansive. And when you're in the presence of Jerry and any sort of an event or things of that nature, maybe one of his trainings, you know you're in the right place. You're like, oh shit, this is real, because it's a visceral experience. And that's part of the knowing, in my opinion, and what I teach people is you get that knowing that goes beyond the book learned sort of like stuff that most people sort of peddle. There's this experience that takes place with the knowledge that Jerry's imparting with you and sharing with you and reminding you who you really are. And I think that's one of the really profound things about the whole infrastructure of how you're putting your version of this access, which is from your own guides, is so powerful. Do you think, what would you magnify this as it's beyond a frequency, right? I don't know what we call it. You know, I like to let people know within the Tao, the mother, and what I tune them into, it's not on the same electromagnetic spectrum as what this 3D reality is. What would you call it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that you could kind of go about answering this question. It's definitely on a different frequency band. It's definitely it's coming from a different dimensional space. And I mean, it's energy, it's light, it's code, it's mathematics. You know, when I look at the raw data of what we're kind of trying to share with people, it comes down to like fluid moving geometry. It is some kind of mathematics that is so beyond what we understand on this earth plane. And what's beautiful about it is the way that we can interpret it as humans is phenomenal. Because I was talking to someone about this, I think it was this morning. To give you an example, right? So someone that we were teaching or helping to remember star magic. We're in Sedona, and this guy is working on this other human being with diverticulitis, like serious stomach problems. And he goes in and he's following the protocols that we shared. And he sees all this popcorn in this lady's stomach. So he's asking, what should I do with the popcorn? And he sees like a popcorn holder like you get in the cinema. So he sticks it underneath and all the popcorn falls into the container. He's like, well, what shall I do with this? And, you know, he's getting the message, feed it to her. So holographically, he's putting it into her mouth and it's dissolving into her stomach. Her diverticulitis gets better. She's never had it since. This is like 18 months ago. Now, the reason I'm sharing this based off your question is because the universe presents stuff to us in ways that we can be, it's familiar to us. Like most people know what popcorn and a popcorn holder is, and most people know how to feed people. So the popcorn and the popcorn holder is something completely different from popcorn and a popcorn holder. It's some kind of frequency which has the ability to completely dissolve, transmute, recalibrate the illness, dis-ease in someone's body into perfect health by moving the energy through. So what we're playing with is some kind of high level frequency that doesn't come from this earth plane. It comes from beyond our 15th dimensional time matrix. It comes from the primary light, primary sound fields. It comes from the original creation energy source, whatever you want to call it. And this code and frequency, it presents itself to us in ways that we can kind of intellectually understand it, see it, perceive it, know it, you know? And so we just have to remember how to play with that code. And that's what we share with people in our trainings, is how to take that information in a kind of an easy to understand and digest format and use it to facilitate someone's healing. That's like a basic example. Like, we as humans are biological computers, and we're literally uploading and downloading code 24/7, 365. Our nervous system can handle so much frequency. Our DNA can store 35 million hours of high definition video, 35,000 terabytes of data. So we can store so much information. Not all of it is positive. Some of it is causing chaos and mayhem, and our body is producing physical symptoms off the back of it. So childhood experiences, teenage year experiences, past life experiences, future life experiences. Once you get out of your physical body, everything is now. There is no past and future. So everything becomes parallel. So all of these experiences that our soul has had or is actually having are creating some kind of, you know, piece of code in the fabric of our biological computer. So what we do is we go in and we change the code in the back end of someone's computer, and then it has a physical verifiable shift in the front end, which could be a tumor disappearing from the kidney. It could be some kind of like toxicity leaving the liver. It could be a knee that has been injured for 13 years suddenly mending. You know, once you get rid of the trauma point, the trigger point in the quantum field that is feeding into the computer system, creating the virus, everything starts to work and function. So we're working with a frequency that comes from outside, not just of this galaxy, but from outside of this universe and universes beyond. So it's a high frequency.
Oh, I love it. I love, you know, you're embodying an example of what I reiterate over and over again with my students and anyone that follows my material, is you need a method. You need a method. It cannot just be, you know, and you probably see this a lot. And I see this, I've been doing this over 30 years. You see it all the time. I got a glimpse. I had angels come to me. I had a clairvoyant sense. I felt energy. I healed myself. And then they're stuck in this chasing the dragon for the rest of their natural born life, looking for a way to get back to that moment, and they can never find it. until they find someone like yourself or myself that are in tune with the ability to help them remember who they are. And so that method, and you speak on the numbers, and I think this is really important because this is coming across the board in many different ways within the conscious, seeking these days, is the numbers. Now, for a Taoist, we stay in the 9 is the highest point. And it's like normally we reference, the conception to birth of human life as a whole evolutionary stage of realization. And there's 9 stages through that bring you to that point where you are the mother, what we call the mother of the Tao, which is the present moment. So your insight into the geometry is mind-boggling to anyone that doesn't understand it, and exciting to someone like myself who does. And it's really, really powerful insight. Do you find that, you mentioned meditation, are you at a point where you feel like you're having a monologue or a dialogue with your guides? I mean, how is that translating? Because you're getting source all day long, my friend. And real recognizes real. It takes this sort of state of just consistency. There's a flow that just doesn't end. Like, I imagine Jerry might have a similar situation like me. I could sit in conference with any of my teachers, and if I don't need food, I'd go for days transcribing information from these people that will instantly affect the 3D reality. So how is it working for you? Because the material, the method, it's self-evident. You see it through your community. You see it through all the things that you've done over the length of your sharing this with the world. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so when it comes to guides and other aspects of reality, I mean, we're all connected. We're all one. So, you are me and I am you. All of the multidimensional elements of the fabric of space-time, whether it's geometrical code, whether it's a being from another reality, an extraterrestrial, some kind of Elohim, angelic being. I mean, we're all connected and we're all part of the same frequency, the same code. Some of us have remembered more and some of us have remembered less. But when a being might come in and talk to me, it's just really me communicating with myself on some level. And if you can just get over that kind of separation of, okay, they're higher than me or lower than me or whatever it might be, well, that's just bullshit. What we have to do is just to be in that present state of awareness and allow the information just to be there, because nothing is over there and you've got to go and get it. There's nothing to reach for. There's nothing to obtain. It's just simply opening yourself up to the field. And once you open yourself up to the field, everything becomes available. Now, for me, what we're sharing with people, it kind of like, it either inspires people and like exhilarates them, or they just think you're an absolute complete and a nutter. And it doesn't really bother me which people think, because I'm not here to kind of gain followers. I'm here to disrupt people's consciousness. I'm here to unsettle people in every cell of their body to the absolute complete and at a maximum. So we shake them up and they get to look at something from a different perspective. And then through that lens, they get to see the truth, in me or you or someone else, because we're all reflections of each other. We're not here to wrap people in cotton wool. We're here to give people hard truths and shine light so brightly that it reflects their own inner darkness, their own chaos, their own trauma back to them, so that they can do the work and initiate that kind of opportunity to step onto the path, which isn't an external path, it's an inward path, to dive into their heart, which is the stargate, which will give them access to absolutely everything. For me, there is a sort of a process to this, and it's a process that every single human being is going through, or is going to go through, if they really want to go on this ascension journey. And this is where it kind of really disrupts so many people, because people are always playing around with these 7 chakras, but these 7 chakras, they're a control mechanism. Okay, they were weaved into our gene code. They were weaved into our blueprint, like the worship gene, like the poverty consciousness gene. It's why there's so much subservience on planet Earth. Oh, Jesus will come and rescue me. This extraterrestrial is going to come down next year and take me to another planet, and I'm going to be safe and I'm back with my star family. No. You got to do the work, man. You got to do the work right here, and you've got to empower yourself, because no one's coming to save you. And it starts off with actually tearing apart and shredding and shining light on our own architecture. Once you realize that the new children coming onto this planet, they don't have 7 chakras. They have a great big diamond heart, and their auric field is on the inside of their body. And this diamond heart is what kind of sustains them, okay? It's their link up through the God spark in their heart to source intelligence. Every human being has a God spark, that kind of, it's like the bat phone. It's that red phone that goes to the bat cave. It's like your direct connection to prime creator, to God, to source intelligence. And we as a species are the only species that all has it. We're also the only species in the galaxy and that actually has free will, you know? And so it's kind of challenging. We've got this free will, which we want to go out and create and expand and have all these crazy human experiences. Some take us down the right path, some take us down the wrong path. But ultimately, when we plug in here, we're connected and we make all the best decisions. They're not always comfortable decisions, but they're the best ones that are going to help us expand and grow. And when you're plugged in here, your frequency is A1. Okay, you're not going to get drained. You're not going to be weak in any way, shape, or form. You're just going to be empowered 24/7, 365. But when you're looking externally for energy, plugging in here, plugging in there, you're never going to be sustained. Now, these 7 chakras, they're like ice cream cones. They're big at the end and they're small in the middle. You've got one at the front, one at the back. So energy can't flow through them properly. Why would these incredible galactic beings that we are, we're angelic humanoids, why would we have these ice cream cones that keep energy stuck and trapped? Well, it's because it's a control mechanism to keep the emotions stuck so we can't grow and expand. And we keep growing through Groundhog Days, cycling over and over. As soon as you open those chakras and you create like a cylinder and you feed the energy through properly and you expand them and you dissolve them and the heart takes over, you move yourself into that frequency band of the new children coming onto the planet. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you can then bring online your transmission centers, which are like multi-dimensional chakras. They exist in a different dimensional space. 7 of them are overlaid in the same place as the original 7, but you've got higher ones, you've got lower ones, and more through your body. And they're like little dams. They open and close, and they let electrical energy down and magnetic energy up. And when the electrical and the magnetic, the male, the female, run up and down through your body efficiently, they start to activate your DNA. They start to trigger other processes. Now, our heart in this 3rd dimensional space is like a cube. When you shift the frequency, okay, into a dodecahedral heart, which has 12 sides, 12 streams of light come out from your heart and plug into your multidimensional Merkaba field, which is multiple tetrahedrons around your body. And those multiple tetrahedrons have 12 points on them. Once those 12 points activate with the 12 streams of light that come out, which is a whole process, but it's so much to go into, the Merkaba field spins. Now, when it spins, it creates a sphere. And the sphere is the 13th point, which plugs into the heart, your 13 transmission centers. It plugs into Mother Earth in a very specific way to activate the 13 code down there. It plugs into the 12 stargates, your 12-strand DNA template, which is all housed in a 13th template to bring the 13 into the equation again. When all of this activates, you start to pull in star codes, okay? And inside your heart, when you place the photonic solids, okay, there's 33 portal points or nodal points in there. They plug into your 33 points on your spinal column, your 33 vertebrae, which plugs into 33 nodal points all over the planet, which bring in code, off-planet cosmic frequency, which plugs into your body and changes and shifts your frequency. I did like an interview, not an interview, but like a Zoom call with someone that's been on our training 2 weeks ago. It was live on our level 1 training. I took people through this, a lady through this whole process. And the video will be out on YouTube in the next couple of weeks. But I took this lady through this whole process. in about 20 minutes. And I'd never done it to anyone in one go before. She was the first person, but I was getting the guidance to do it. And I was asking, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable? Like her body's going crazy. There's all this electricity running through her, but she's rapidly shifting. And I spoke to her today and she just said her whole life's transformed. Like in 2 weeks, her frequency's different. She's plugged in, like everything's falling apart around her because, you know, she's on such a different frequency band right now. When you activate people to this level of potential, it's massive. And there's no one else on the planet actually going through this process right now, because I don't know whether people don't understand it or they've not figured all the pieces of the puzzle together, but this is where it's at. And to be able to even go into this process, you've first got to understand that what you've been taught for thousands of years is complete and utter BS. People are still plugging into these 7 chakras, thinking that bringing the energy up to your crown is the way that it's at. That's a very small piece of the puzzle. It's all about the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is not something you can find externally. The Holy Grail is inside of you. It's that interlacing and interweaving of the masculine and feminine. It's the flowering of a cosmic lotus flower down in your perineum, where you've got your Genesis cells, which are 8 little cells that appear in the human body 49 days after conception. 4 and 9 is 13, the number of the divine goddess. And this 13 code comes in everywhere. We could talk about this loads, but this cosmic lotus flower flowers down in the perineum. It's magnetic and supports this electrical rise up through your crown into your pineal gland, which is the rebirth. Okay, this is the resurrection, the real resurrection. You know, not some person coming back to life on a cross. The real resurrection is the pineal gland coming back online and us accessing our full superhuman potential. So in a nutshell, this is kind of how it works and how we play with the frequency and how we use it to kind of help other human beings switch into this 5th dimensional frequency band so we can create this new earth.
Woo! I love it. I love it because there's this cross-sectioning, like, you know, you're probably not familiar with Taoism at all, but I mean, dude, the parallels of information, how you're receiving it from your direct source of knowing, and then how the Taoist has been applying it within their own seeking for thousands of years is like mind-blowing to me, because I'm probably the only person on planet Earth, quite frankly, that teaches the inner alchemy to the level that I teach people. And people come from around the world to train with me. And the stuff you're talking about is so potent, and it's self-evident by your community. But it's like there is these incredible parallels, because we refer to perfection, the mother, as the diamond, and everything is a different facet. And when you talk about, oh, look, you know, people are having dialogue or separating, we talk about the monologue, which is the mother, the present moment, the now. And it's so exciting to me when you're able to reflect on this incredible system that you're sharing with the world and how potent that is. And then the Taoist system that is another offering from the same consciousness. And it's like so amazing how we come to the same place. And so right down to, you know, understanding that you call it the lotus flower. We have a flower called the sacred infinite flower that is materialized and realized in what we call the upper dantian. And that is activated through internal alchemy practices. And we, you know, the energy centers, as you said, we don't call them chakras within Taoism, we call them dantians. And, you know, there are an infinite amount, but normally I hook people up to the first 81, which makes you superhuman, levitate, and will see through walls and heal people at a thought and all that kind of good stuff. It's like there's never in history, my friend, has there ever been this access to information the way it is right now. It's like mind-blowing to me. And, you know, the stuff that you're putting out is woo, because it's real, guys. I need the audience to understand how palpable this stuff is and the presence of what it does. When Jerry talks about the visceral effects where people are you know, you're seeing a physical shift. And this is, you know, the body's nervous system adjusting to a new frequency, where you see people look kind of possessed. They're rumbling. You know, this happens. I see this quite often when I recalibrate people. It's like this whole, you know, you unless you're there, unless you experience it, a lot of people, and I'm probably sure you've heard this before. Oh, that's not real. Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, yeah, we get people like that are always like message on Facebook or what, they see the adverts and they're like, listen, let me speak to someone. I don't want to listen or watch all of these paid actors going through this stuff. I mean, you think you can pay people to go to have these kind of experiences? I mean, it's mind blowing. The best actor in the world could not like mimic what is happening in someone's body when they're having these kind of upgrades and downloads. You know, when you run frequency, I mean, we always run it in through the back of the neck. I mean, the priests call the back of the neck God's mouth. Priests wear those big collars because they think demons are going to come in and attack them through the back of the neck. And that's true. If you're a demon, it would be a great place to go and attack someone. It's very vulnerable. What we do is we run frequency out through our hands, which we take from the multi-dimensional fields, and run it in through the back of the neck, through God's mouth. It runs up into the pineal gland. The master cell downloads the code into every cell in the body, and they have a biological upgrade.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a few years ago, like, I mean, this is crazy, and it always blows me away. We were doing a training in India, and I said, has anyone got any bone problems? And this lady puts her hand up. She says, yeah, I got punched in the face by my husband 20 years ago. I've had facial reconstruction surgery, but I've still got a dent in my face. She had a big dent in her face. So I got her up to the front. I ran this frequency, God's mouth, on her. Then I put what we call HF15. It's a series of geometries downloaded into a code. The dolphin frequency, I put it down through her crown. Anyway, she's having this experience on the floor. She gets up and all of her face is mended. Like, how can someone have like solid bone with a dent in it, and then 5 minutes later it's gone? That's unbelievable for me. Like, we have people with spines that are twisted, kyphoscoliosis and an S shape. And I even guided a young lad of 8 years old in California a year or so ago to fix someone's spine. He did it in 40 minutes. A young 8-year-old lad. And he unwinds it and straightens it. 40 minutes. We've got all the x-rays from the doctor. It's mind-boggling. How can like someone have all of this physio and all of these things for years and years, but not, and then suddenly 40 minutes later, you've got a straightened spine? It's because what happens in the field is real, you know, and the building blocks of the quantum field are the building blocks of reality, you know. Like the physicalness cannot come out of nothing. It has to come from something, and it comes from the space, and the space isn't empty. The space is full of energy and code. And when you know how to play with that code, you can create anything. You can recreate anything. You know, we're wizards, you know, just playing around with wands. But people don't, they think all this Harry Potter shit's like, it's just a movie.
Right.
You know? It's
amen to that, brother. I mean, when I first set eyes on you, I was like, my goodness, we're reunited and it feels so good, because what you do and what people that are around you experience, this is the kind of stuff I'm used to. I got hit by the Harry Potter crack pipe 30 years ago, where I witnessed for the first time, within seconds of this experience, physical gangrenous flesh returning back to pink in color in 40 minutes. And that's interesting. You said that that young boy, it took him 40 minutes. I don't know what that number is about. Now, speeding it up 30 years later, where these miracles are like, I've seen bone fuse, I've seen tumors disappear, and all I'm doing is observing something holding a resonance. Now, you have to learn how to acquire that, and that's why you go to Jerry, you come to me, you learn these resonance. It's a holding force. It's like mind. It will blow your mind. And it's like, this is stuff that, and maybe you could speak on this, because when I see physical flesh transmute, it wiggles and forms back, and wiggles and shakes until it forms back to its original state. Like, you know, flesh. The classic one is watching. I got into a whole thing where I was like, and had a hobby of raising sebaceous cysts to the top of the skin, the flesh will open up, the cyst will pour out, and then it will seal before my very eyes. And this is the kind of stuff. This is just a resonance. And now I say it not to dismiss it, but it's like Jerry's bringing this stuff in, and people need to understand this is not from this world, and it's affecting the 3D reality and resetting people back to their original state. And that's why it's so visceral. It's so transformative. And how would you describe the sort of witnessing of these type of miracles? Because I am 100% agree with you, because I've been witnessing it for the last 30 years. This stuff is palpable, and when people are trained in it, man, it happens instantly. It's not like, hey, let's pitter patter around this for days, weeks, months, years. No. It's now. It happens now.
Yeah, this is a really good question. Like, if I bring it back to the way that we train people, so our level 1 training is 5 days plus a couple of bonus days, and we start with beginners, then intermediate, then advanced techniques. We call them ways. Now, when you're administering, say, the beginners techniques, you're playing with the energy, you're moving stuff around, you're like really getting involved in the healing. When you get to the kind of intermediate stuff, then you're kind of stepping back a little bit. You're kind of setting the space up, you're setting your intentions, you're bringing in frequencies, and then you're kind of sort of like watching. When you get to the advanced techniques, you're doing nothing. Okay, so less is more. When we try and interfere, we fuck it up. And if you actually think about life itself, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's our health, whenever we try and interfere with the natural processes of nature, we get it wrong. Like, you look at the jungle looks chaotic, but whenever is there a problem in the jungle? Never. There's only a problem when man comes in and tries to build something there and messes around with the habitat. You know, everything's fine until man interferes. Now, when it comes to healing, when you try and interfere and do too much, you get in the way of the frequency. It's like, why are human beings ill? Human beings are ill because we think too much. Like, if you look at a whirlpool in a stream, if you look at the Niagara Falls, it always looks like a whirlpool. It always looks like the Niagara Falls, but it's fresh water running through it all the time. If you look at our physical bodies, every 11 months, we're a whole new makeup of atoms, molecules, chemicals, fibers, new energy. So if we're a new complete makeup every 11 months, how do we get ill? Because we think it there, we keep it there, we analyze, and we judge, and we blame, and we interfere with the flow of energy. So we block the energy, and the stuck energy manifests. Now, when it comes to healing, and this comes back to what you were saying about the resonance frequency, if we get into a space, very, very specific frequency with the heart, and we hold the line on that frequency, and we don't falter from that 0 point, and our intentions are immaculate, not even one tiny little thought. It's like our mind and our body and soul is expanded throughout the multidimensional playing fields, which means we have access to everything. And if we've got access to everything, we are everything. It means we're in wholeness. And then when we activate, get into that space, everything just starts to resynthesize. You know, we've seen people's thyroids grow back. People that have had lung problems, they've got one lung. You know, we do a healing session, the other lung, it regrows. A gallbladder, a kidney, they come back. How is that possible? How can someone have no kidney and now they've got a kidney? Like, for me, it's like, I get fascinated every time. I'm not like, oh yeah, man, it's just another day at the office. It's like, holy shit. It's amazing.
It's like the first time you witnessed it. That's how I get. I'm giddy, little kid.
It's like the first time.
Right? Every day. Yeah.
Every time. It's like a miracle, and it excites me. And the more I see it, the more I want it to happen. You know, I mean, we did an American tour last year. We had 3 people get up out of wheelchairs. One person not worked for 12 plus years, an elderly lady, 72. Another lady, like 50 odd, who had MS for 5 years. Doctors have said, you will never walk again. Second day of the group healing, she gets up and walks 40 odd meters to the toilet and back. No more wheelchair. We had another guy that was paraplegic, get up, come in the next day just with some crutches and no wheelchair. Like, how is this stuff possible? It's because you're attuning people back to the resonant frequency. But the only way to do it is through the spiral. Okay, we're living and playing in a cubed reality. You know, we're playing in Metatron's cube. Okay, this reality field is held inside Metatron's cube. Now, it's not that Metatron's cube is bad, because Metatron's cube was used to stop the fall in consciousness millions of years ago. But we as a species and many other species have got stuck inside this geometry. Now, the only way out of it is to spiral out of it. And all of the beings inside this reality, Mother Nature inside this reality, we're all running off a false template. We're running off the Fibonacci sequence. We're not running off the original crystal spiral. Now, when you bring everything back to the spiral, everything changes. The first time that I realized this to be true, because I've been playing around and seeing results in people, and you know, this story, man, I always tell it because it amazes me. We had a guy from Brazil. He got in contact with us, and he'd woke up one morning and his skull had grown massive. And he looked, he a big head on these little shoulders, but his brain had stayed the same size. So when he put his head down, his brain would fall. If he was jogging, it was quite painful. So he said, you know, I need some help. So I got him to send us a photo, because I was amazed by this. You know, this is like 6 years ago. And I looked into his eyes. We always look into someone's eyes because you get the kind of connection. It's the gateway to the soul, right? So you get a blueprint. Now, I realized that he'd been connecting to these off-planet frequencies, these spirals, and his skull had gone back to its normal size, but his brain and the rest of his body had stayed the same. So he'd had like a partial DNA upgrade on the physical body. So anyway, I meet this kid. He's like 21. I meet him on Skype. And he says to me, Jerry, please help me shrink my skull back down. I said, bro, why don't you try and grow your brain? And he looked at me like I was nuts. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to grow his brain, but I didn't know how I'd shrink his skull. So I thought, let's at least try and grow his brain. But he said to me, look at me. When I'm walking down the street, everybody's looking at me. I look weird. And he did look a little bit funny because his head was huge. So anyway, I couldn't talk him into it. So I did this session on him and we shrunk his skull back down. But since then, we've had people that have emailed in, like, my hands have suddenly grown. My feet have gone from a size 6 to a size 9 just overnight. How is this happening? It's because they're plugging in to the original template and bits of their body are growing back to their normal size. So the more and more of us that recalibrate and switch into these 5D frequency bands and use this crystalline code, the more that our bodies are going to regenerate back to their former size. We're going to activate our DNA template and we're going to move back into those kind of angelic humanoid beings that we once were, where we can travel in our Merkabas and, you know, see everything and feel everything and communicate without opening our mouths and using this archaic language. You know, it's beautiful.
I mean, you've got all this, and that's how I work with all the training that I have. I have basic fundamentals of Taoist ancient rituals, but then I embody them and expand on them through my direct source with my teachers, which you would call your consciousness, your now, your monologue, and you get the full picture, not this sort of antiquated, disturbed picture. So a lot of people, when they talk to me about Taoist alchemy, they go, "Oh, we're talking about the cauldron. The cauldron's in the." I'm like, no, that's just like a false negative, my friend. A lot of it's just fragmented rubbish that people put out, and that's why they never achieve what we call the infinite Wuji body, which is all things. It's like, hey, hang on a second, what are we missing? Well, everything. Everything is a distraction. Everything is a manipulation to keep you separated. And I think it's so powerful how you've attuned to your knowing and you're bringing people back to realizing that. And it's self-evident by the experiences that everyone that has come across your incredible message and your community and the methods that you're using that make it realized. And it's like, that's that remembrance. And so, when you're talking about the spiral, I don't know, I've only ever come across one person in human history that has come remotely close to the Taoist understanding of the energy. And that was a guy by the name of Walter Russell. I don't know whether you ever heard of this guy. Anyway, he was back in the, I think it's a contemporary of Tesla. And,
yeah, he's the one that did the alternate periodic table with the expansion of the spiral.
Yeah. So that guy was the closest. And when I talked to him about how he saw it, and people are like, what are you saying, talking to him? Well, I just channel him and have a direct conversation with what it is that he was attempting to get on the precipice of, because there's still some missing pieces that within a Taoist, there's no missing pieces, but he's close, very, very close. And you're on point, and your messaging through your access is giving people results. It all comes down, enough of, I'm a show me guy, enough of the talk and the BS that a lot of people get into within this space. And you probably know this, Jerry. It's like there's a lot of people that ramble with these words, show me. And that's where you and I are very similar. Like attracts like, is this palpable resonance. And we show people it comes in no other form. There's nothing more experiential or self-evident than you being able to experience it now, right? And so when you see the community that Jerry's created, the testimonials of the people, I mean, there's no more talking. It's like, it's a real deal. It's like Harry Met Sally. You ever seen that movie? I'll have whatever she's having. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because that is self-evident. And so, yeah, he was about the closest, and there's still missing components, but we resort back to this intuitive knowing of the spiraling effect that, comes in all forms. But when you look at the spiral from a profile, you can see the yin and yang symbol within that. And so, and that was his realization within his own journey of this sort of like integrating this new way of accessing the somatic experience with the periodic table, with the energy flow, and this sort of like limited sort of lines of things where, like you said, it's an old way of learning, and it's a way to trap you from remembering who you are and keeping you separated. And so what's the fastest recalibration for you with an upgrade? It's probably instantaneous. You've had plenty of people that just go, hey, I'm just going to poof.
The fastest is instantaneous. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, straight away. And you never know whether it's going to be instantaneous or it's going to take a few hours or sometimes a few days, and even sometimes it can take a couple of weeks for the old, deep toxicity from their computer code to kind of rise up, transmute, and just allow the space for that new frequency to come in, And so what you said a minute ago is really interesting, like about the yin and the yang, because like that yin and yang spiral is so important. We talk about, dark and light. We talk about fear and love. We talk about up and down, all of these different kind of, dualistic, polaristic points of view. But darkness and light, that black and white, I mean, within that spiral, you've got both. And some people, they move towards the light. Some people are in the darkness, and you're never going to be empowered if you're in the dark or the light. You got to be in both. And that spiral, it encompasses both. And it's about the masculine, the feminine coming together. Now, the masculine and feminine can be in ourselves. We can have the electrical and the magnetic, that twin flame connection within ourselves. We can also have it within partners. And what's really interesting, when you've got that kind of black and white yin yang, in the white, you've got the little black, and in the black, you've got the little white. And so when you bring those two together, especially in sacred union with a partner, okay, you've got the male and the female, but within the male, you've got the little dot of the female, and in the female, you've got the little dot of the male. So what we've discovered, and this is something that my girlfriend has brought to my attention that we've been working through. Let's say, for example, you're in sacred union, and you've got little pieces of your unhealed inner child that need to be brought into healing, whatever it is. The one partner works on the inner child of the other one, and the other partner works on the inner child of the other one. That's like the little inner child in the bigger white part, or the little black part in the bigger black part, or the little white part and the big black part, you know, the black part and the white part. Okay, those two bits together. And so by communicating the electrical and the magnetic, big to small, small to big, this spiral, it has everything inside of it. And this is where the magic happens. The Mother, the Father, the Divine Child, the Holy Trinity. It's all encompassed inside that yin and yang. You know, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, you know, the 3 points on the equilateral triangle. Like, it goes back to the original split of creation, where you've got source intelligence that moves into duality. You've got the Mother and the Father, and out from the Father, you create the child. You know, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, depending on which way you look at it, they're all different forms of this triangulation. And this triangulation is the most powerful geometry in the universe, but it still keeps you locked. But what happens is that because you've got to go through the spiral to get back to source, but the triangle becomes a tetrahedron. The tetrahedron becomes a Merkaba field. The Merkaba field becomes a multi-dimensional Merkaba field. And from the multi-dimensional Merkaba field, you can activate the components that move back to the spiral. So it's like a kaleidoscope. It kind of goes out, it goes in, it goes out, it goes in. You've got all of the mathematics in the kaleidoscope to help you go everywhere, to travel anywhere. But you've got to understand the kaleidoscope. And so the straight lines give us access to the spiral. The spiral, we can reverse engineer it and go back into the straight lines. Okay, so both are part of the same mold, but it depends how you perceive it and how you kind of access it. But ultimately, we want to move from the straight lines back to the spiral to get out of this space. If you want to stay in this space, play around with the straight lines, and that's cool, because you might be really happy here in this space. And like right now, I am really happy here on planet Earth. I love it. I love the human game. But at the same time, I like to travel out and come back in. And at some point, I want to be ready to exit when my so-called point of, you know, exit, the point I've written into my own story, whether it's in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, if I want to exit this matrix, I know how to move through the stargates, through the spiral, and get out.
Wow. Woo. It's like there's so many, again, it's like your path and the Taoist path is like this. You talk about the spiral, which is, you know, a classic yin and yang representation of all things. Yet we talk about what you're speaking of as between the yin and the yang. We call it the Wu Ji, the stillness, which is the center point, which is the mother of all things. And then again, you were talking about the spiraling effect and the kaleidoscope. It's like we talk about man, the universe, the mother is like a bellows. It contracts and expands, understanding that this is a constant, that it never stops. And between the contraction and expansion is the center point. But most people get trapped in realizing themselves as the man, and they say, the universe, the mother, is a bellows. Man is not. Man will be exhausted. And if you identify it as this physicality, you will be disappointed in the outcome. And once you access that center point of realization, all things are now, all things are abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite, the truth to all things, the anchor to the universe, from this physicality that expands to all things. Wow, that's crazy, man. It's crazy because this is the thing that I'm talking about. You're coming from a place of just straight up sourcing this stuff. You have these epiphanies, these moments of remembering, and you bring this stuff in. And, you know, you're not like, oh, I sat down and I read a book on Taoism and it all just came to me. No, you just like, you're in that moment. You got access to source. Your alien family that initially engaged with your initiation just downloaded all this stuff. It's like it's like that. Like you and I get excited when we see those miracles every day, those healings. This is what I'm doing. I'm getting like all giddy like a little kid because this is what we speak of, and you can't make this shit up. You cannot make it up. It's like wild. And so when you're speaking on this stuff, it's like, all of my students would be like, what, are these guys like brothers from another mother or something? Where, you know, it's just a different facet of the, as we call it, a different facet of the diamond, but they're all consciousness. Every way you look at it, you say tomato, I say tomato. You're sitting at one end of the table, I'm sitting at the other. Consciousness is that table, and in the middle of it is an orange. You see it one way, I see it the other, and it's like you can't make this stuff up. It's why I am where I am right now. I get excited by these very moments. They're just crazy. And so, go ahead.
No, sorry to interrupt. I always liken it to like an ocean, you know, like we're all part of this ocean, this consciousness, and you're a wave, I'm a wave. There's billions of waves on this planet, and these waves are, you know, birthing out from the ocean, going nearer to the shore, and they're sharing their wisdom, they're sharing their light, they're having their own individual experiences on the great vast ocean of consciousness. But at some point, the waves crash. And when the wave crashes, it gets pulled back out into the ocean and becomes part of consciousness again. So we're never separate from that source, even if sometimes we might think we're a little bit separate. Like, nothing is separate. It can't be separate. It's impossible for it to be separate. So, yeah, I mean, and it comes back to unity, you know, like divide and conquer. That's why humanity is a little bit weak, because we've allowed ourselves to be divided and conquered. You know, and when we come back and realize that we're this vast ocean of consciousness, that we're this love and this all-encompassing frequency that holds dark and light and needs to love all of us, then we're going to be empowered and we're going to step forwards. And you talking about like Taoism, and me talking about like star magic, and them having so many kind of like, you know, blends of the same stuff. It's amazing, and that just kind of proves that everything does come from the same source. We just interpret it differently, like you're saying. You know, I've perceived it in one way, and I'm sharing it in a way. You're perceiving it in one way and sharing it in a way. It's
and
beautiful.
There's no wrong or right way up the mountain. I always tell people, if you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. It's as simple. I mean, again, like my students will be like, did Jerry just say that thing about the ocean? Because we speak on that. We go, we're all rivers, and all rivers return to the ocean.
Absolutely.
And it's like, holy moly. I know my students are going to be blowing me up today going, did he just, what? What's going on here? You guys are like blending together. You're morphing together, because that's it. It's like another facet. And all the information is right there, and it can't be more self-evident than something through your own admission that you've been accessing for consciously since, I think, 2016. You said something like that, and you know, you're accessing this through your own journey now, and like, it's like, hang on a second, he just walked into this thing, tapping into direct source, and he was given this incredible understanding of all things as we know it as one, that you can't make the shit up. And then you reference it to something that within Taoism has been something going on for thousands of years, but so is your stuff. It's been going on for an infinitive amount of time. There is no end or limit. People need to understand this. I get caught up in the timeline of human history, and I go, you know what? The truth is, personally, if you want to give me the origins of Taoism, it's infinite. And it started an infinite amount of time ago, which means what? It means there is no start or end. It means that it is the now. We refer to this bellowings effect that is the contracting and expansion of all things. And once you find that center point, you become realized as this present moment. The gift is your offering. Jade Emperor uses this incantation. We use it within our own practice. A power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transcending all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. Which again returns us back to so much of the stuff that we're talking about, which is, you are me, I am you. What is there to be afraid of? When you hear this all the time, I know Jerry is a no bullshit kind of guy. So people are like, I come in here and I wrap myself in my angels and I make sure that I'm not permeated by the poison of the evil doers. And if you're at one, there's nothing to do but be now. And we are the same. So what are you afraid of? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting subject. So for me, I'm always going to tell someone the truth. And if someone is being a victim, I'm going to tell them, you're being a victim. You need to really kind of like man up, woman up, and really take control of your own situation. Here are the tools. Go and take action on them. That's kind of one side of it. I mean, there is another side. I mean, we're talking about dark and light, yeah, and dark and light is all one. I mean, everything is part of this same source frequency, but there are kind of offshoots to that. And in this world, there really is something called evil. At the end of the day, evil is an experience. Whether you can call evil good or bad is really depending on how you perceive it. Because without these extremities of evil, without these extremities of darkness, of whatever you want to call it, people bombing people, people murdering people, satanic ritual abuse, some crazy stuff that goes on this planet. Without it, there'd be no contrast. And without contrast, you're going to get lost. I don't care who you are. Even if you're in the love, man, and everything's beautiful, at some point, you're going to forget. You're just going to be vibrating in this frequency of love, and you're going to get a bit curious, and you're going to think, I want to experience something different. Because you've forgotten what it's like to be in the darkness and in the evil. So having evil and darkness and all of this sort of stuff and all of these different polarities and dualities, it gives us the opportunity to know where the middle way is. And again, it brings you back to that middle road, that middle way, and that's the place you've got to walk down, bring it all into the center. But there is evil. You know, I mean, we in Star Magic, we get a whole kind of certain very specific type of client on one level, because we train people in this stuff. We train people to deal with interdimensional entities. We call them shadow parasites because they behave the same way as a normal parasite. Like a normal parasite will go into the body of an insect or a human, and it will start to infiltrate that entities, that being's thoughts, and take control of the consciousness, like caterpillars. These parasites go into caterpillars and they make the caterpillar climb to the top of the tallest tree. Once the caterpillar gets up there, the caterpillar explodes, and then all the juices go over all the leaves and the branches, and all the other caterpillars come and eat it, takes over their consciousness. They will climb up the trees and explode. That's how the parasite grows. You get shadow parasites, which come inside human beings, or they work inside a human being's energy field, and they siphon the energy of a human being. They extract the frequency, they live off it, they feed off of it, they send the frequency down into the ley lines to certain grid points, which get sent off planets to other extraterrestrials, other interdimensional entities that feed off of, some people call it loosh. I mean, it's a heavy energy that they enjoy. Fear, guilt, anger, jealousy, rejection, any kind of lower frequency energy, they feed off of it. So they want to get into our bodies, get into our energy fields, and create as much chaos and mayhem as possible. So what we do is we train people on how to deal with these interdimensional entities, how to remove them, how to send them back to source or whichever vibrational space they need to go to. Most healing modalities stay away from this stuff, either because they don't understand it, or they're scared of it, or they sweep it under the carpet and pretend it doesn't exist. But we train people in it specifically to work with this stuff because it affects so many people on this planet. I put a video on YouTube a few weeks ago. I mean, we've had some crazy kind of experiences, like women that have come to us where they've got pregnant, and the woman, after say 6-7 months of being pregnant, they cut the baby out from the womb, stick it on a barbecue, cook it whilst it's alive, and make the mother eat it. And they do that to her several times, then rape her again and get her pregnant again. Like, we've had people in Masonic ceremonies, and there's even video testimonials on our website of this, where there's one woman, she was 2 years old, she's in a Masonic lodge, and they cut a little boy's head off in front of her. that she was playing with, then stick her in a coffin with snakes and spiders under the ground for 2 days, get her out 2 days later, and then 30 or so men in black robes rape her. I mean, that's the start of her life. How do you get over some kind of trauma like that? You know, drawing a trauma like that, these interdimensional entities, they're in there and they're taking control. And this is how the game works. There's physical beings on this planet that are creating chaos and mayhem, so much fear, then it opens up gateways for the interdimensional entities to come in. So there is this stuff happening on planet Earth. I don't see it as good or bad. I just see it as something that we need to deal with. So we deal with it. And I've had so much of this stuff in my life when I was younger. I experienced it myself. So I like to go in and help people in these circumstances. And it's always challenging, and I like a challenge. So for me, it's good to go in and work on this stuff. Back to your question, I mean, how do I think about this stuff? I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's just a part of reality at the moment. You can either pretend it doesn't exist and go down the pub and drink loads of beer, you know, go and party in nightclubs, sniff some cocaine, have a great time, you know, dance, do what the fuck you want. Or you can think, you know what, let me just get involved and do some real work here. You know, let me raise my frequency. Let me get some skills under my belt. Let me remember that I'm a planetary guardian. I'm a custodian of this sacred earth. I'm a Stargate guardian. You know, I came here with multidimensional skill sets. Let me remember them. Let me access them. Let me instigate them and activate and initiate them. Start to play with them and remember them, and then go out and do something useful. You know, we're only on Earth for a short period of time. You may as well, you know, have a bit of fun and get involved in the game, you know, instead of brushing it under the carpet and pretending it doesn't exist.
Man, I swear to God, you sure you're not a Taoist? I don't know. Because, you know, that's my background. I've been performing exorcisms on people for 30 years. One of the monasteries I was ordained in, their expertise was exorcisms. So this is something that's fundamentally 30 years ago when someone was coming to me being diagnosed with a psychotic episode is where you get down with the get down. You realize what the truth is. And that is subject to this dualistic expression of your reality. And the more you feed on it by expressing the emotional content in that low frequency, as you just explained it to the audience, is how I explain it. It's like you will get more of the same. It's like you're the barometer, you're the tuning fork. So it's like that little boy screaming out, wolf. It'll come for you. It's there. There's an infinite amount of energies and frequencies. So if you embody it, and, you know, over the decades, I've taught quite a few people how to channel and teach them how to do all that stuff. And, you know, they get obsessed with the exorcism part. They want to be the big bad exorcist kicking ass of all these lower frequency energies, and they tend to get bombarded with what I call stage 5 clingers, and they just embed into, just as you explained, the parasite into their physical flesh, and they commandeer their intention or their perception of reality. And until it's removed, you observe someone's energetic potential, and their whole energy system is locked up. It almost, it looks just like a black substance that is sort of basically commandeered their energy centers, and they're incapable of synchronizing. And so once you heal, once you remove it, is anything is possible? Absolutely. And that, for me, the full circle for these type of entities is love. And when you give it to them, they just dissolve. They're like, my job is done here. And they literally disintegrate in the same second. But it's an unconditional knowing. It's a fearlessness. It's not a, oh, I read on the Hallmark card that if I give them love, everything will be. No. It's a knowing. It's a selfless state that you are in, and it doesn't come with I'm looking to get something out of this. It's just who you really are, and that's that present moment. And, you know, wow, when you talk on this stuff, it's like, it's wild. Because that's really, you know, within Taoism, we don't look at things as good and bad. They're just yin and yang. And, you know, you take two sides of a mountain. The journey for a Taoist seeker is one side of the mountain is yin, one side of the mountain is yang. You go up the mountain and you merge them all together. All is one, one is all. You realize there's this present moment, the mother, and that returns everything to perfection. So that cycle of the bellows is that ability to realize when you're in that contractive state, that center point between the contracting and expanding, it is from a perception of a human being, your lowest point, when in actuality, you're about to experience your highest point. So within Taoism, when someone says, oh, I'm depressed, this is a sick cycle of oppression, depression, possession. We need to, your isolation is the very evidence that it's time for you to return. And it's time for you to exercise whatever it is that's commandeering your thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are not of the best interests of humanity, of the highest state. And so some people come to this realization. That's how they end up on your doorstep or mine. But there are a lot of situations where that's never realized, that they're part of the casualty of whatever their incarnation is for this reality. And it's okay, but it also is evident to this polarizing effect that Jerry talks about, as in the light and the darkness, and then the merging of the two is so powerful. My goodness. And it's just universal, man. It's like you see it. And when you are able to access it the way Jerry can and share it and show people how to remember this state, all bets are off, my dear friends. You are now getting into where you need to be, because you're not gravitating to Jerry and watching his stuff, listening to his material, embodying the things that he's doing, unless you're meant to. That's your synchronicity. That's that very moment. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It just comes back to resonance again. When you're on a frequency, then you're going to move into the field of others on that frequency. It's interesting because there's levels to this. So, we're out there and we're promoting what we do, and we're bringing in lots of people. We're training. They're coming to our group healings. They join Infinity, which is our membership, the app you can download with the meditations. People are doing all this work. And then there comes a time when, they reach a certain point and they're like, I want to go further. And so they kind of come closer into the inner circle. But when you get closer into the inner circle, the light burns even brighter. And so when the light burns even brighter, it exposes what's inside other human beings to a whole other degree. So those human beings that are doing the work and the healing and dealing with their past life, future life, present life trauma, they're shredding entities, whatever it might be, they're removing kind of implants from their system. They're healing on a multidimensional level. Sometimes you get little bits and pieces within people that they just bury, that they just won't look at. And it could be some kind of deep trauma here or deep trauma there. It doesn't really matter. But for me, the biggest thing is vulnerability. Okay, when someone is vulnerable and they're like, this is who I am. They don't try and hide anything, which is what I've always done. Like, I've never tried to shy away from my past. It is who I am. It's what I've done. But you try and bury that shit. You start coming out into the public eye, at some point it's going to get unearthed. It's the same with your emotions, your traumas. You start putting layers of cement or wallpaper over this stuff, and you start going deeper into the light. The light's going to burn through that cement, burn through that wallpaper, and the cracks are going to start to appear. So people that come deeper into our inner circle, that have tried to cover this little bit and that bit of work up, they get exposed. And then what happens is when people come into that inner circle, what they do is they say, I knew it. You were dark. You're the devil. You're bad. Instead of being like, you know what? Another level has been exposed inside of me. Let me dive into this and make it right. It's crazy when you get to those really deep levels, when people really want to get deep and they really want to go into it, how much they haven't fine-tuned themselves. It's the difference between, I don't know, some average car on the road and a Lamborghini, or a Lamborghini and a Bugatti Veyron. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a level, you're at the Lamborghini Gallardo, but then you've got the Bugatti Veyron. So you've got different levels. Like, one is highly tuned and finely tuned, and it can drive and handle the road, and boy, it looks sexy. But then you've got this different level of car. more prestigious. It's really gone to those other levels, and the price point shows why it's at a whole other level. And when you do this work and you go to a certain level, yeah, you can hold that frequency, you can hold the light, but you start going deeper and you get exposed. It's like when we're training people to facilitate healing and deal with these darker elements of reality, we use a frequency. We call it kaleidoscopic chromium. Years ago, meditating on a beach in a meditation on the in the Andromedan galaxy on a planet, these ETs, okay, gave me and my friends this kaleidoscopic chromium frequency. So kaleidoscopic chromium looks like a chrome bumper on a car, but within it you've got every single color range, a million pinks, a million oranges, a million greens, like every color you could possibly imagine. So what happens is you might be working through the field and you see the client that you're working with, their dead grandmother. And you're like, oh, your dead grand's come in to see you. If someone was inexperienced, they might just take that dead grandmother for gospel. But actually, it's just another entity shapeshifting into something that they would trust. So they open their heart and they get infiltrated. So what we would do is we would surround that entity in kaleidoscopic chromium, and it might try and shapeshift. If you put it in crystal white light or diamond light or violet light, it will hold that frequency all day long. But you stick it in kaleidoscopic chromium, those entities can't shapeshift fast enough through the different frequencies. So you catch them, and then you know exactly what you're dealing with. So having this kind of level, this skill set, this level of self-awareness, of multidimensional awareness, these different tools like kaleidoscopic chromium to show up entities in the space. You know, you need these kind of tools when you're playing in the field. Otherwise, you come unstuck.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where I always focus on people's senses, the sensory perception under the blanket of, you know, clair senses, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, there's an infinite amount of senses, but if you cannot see what it is you're experiencing and you're only feeling, you are potentially, it could be problematic. So your senses of sight, whether it starts with something more infantile in the third eye, or you see it with your eyes open, which is a developmental skill. Everyone has the ability to do it. You just have to learn how to develop these skills. It's critical. And when you get there, then you're able to reveal what is in front of you and what is the difference with those resonance and what is the difference with the energy and the actual properties of that energy and what it's really doing. And so,
yeah. And just to come back as well, because I didn't really answer your question. I kind of went on a bit of a tangent, but you're asking about the entities and you mentioned love, and like this is a real like good point of discussion, because when you're dealing with these entities and they're in a human body or they're in the human's energy field, like we've got a process that we use to deal with them, but an integral part of that process is love, because these beings, like, a lot of them don't even want to be in the human bodies. There's a hierarchical system when it comes to these entities. And so an entity might be like a foot soldier inside the body, and they're like, they've had enough of it. But it's what they know. They've been with this human for 20, 30 years, or they might have even been with the soul of the human for eons. So they're traveling incarnation to incarnation. Now, if I came to your home and I said, bro, get out. Your home's my home now. I mean, you're either going to punch me in the face and say no, or you're going to shit yourself and give me your house. One of the two, you know? Now, it's like these entities can get scared. They either fight because they're in fear, or they're kind of in that space of, you know what? I'm happy to go. And if they're happy to go, it's easy to get rid of them. If they're not, then you got to love them even more, because you've got to feel a bit, you know, a bit of empathy for these beings, because a lot of them don't want to be there. And so the more you love them, the more you can kind of love them into submission, and it's easier to remove them. You know, attacking them is never really going to work. But with that said, there are times when you get some really nasty entities, and you may have to kind of not apply anger, but apply a controlled force that would subdue them slightly to enable you to remove them and get rid of them. So yeah, I think this love thing, when it comes to that, is really, really important to kind of like speak about, because a lot of people will dive into these healing sessions and go into fear. Now, the other thing is this, like, if you're in fear when you go into to work with one of these entities, it's going to pick up on your thoughts. So it's going to amplify your own fear in your body, and it's going to communicate with you in a way and try and put you into fear to put you off. So you've got to go in with love, because then it's got nothing to feed off. It can only feed off of you if you're in a low frequency. It can't feed off of joy, high humor, laughter, love. It's got not a chance. But you go in a lower vibrational frequency, it's going to play on that all day long. I mean, I know people that have been in their bedrooms. Entities have come in, they pin them to the bed, and the person's fighting. And the more they fight, they can't move. But as soon as they remember, yeah, love, they drop into their heart, they open their heart, and the entity, it just disappears in seconds because nothing to feed off. So this love is important, very important.
Yeah, I mean, it brings back the very fundamentals of the Taoist alchemy and spirit projection. So whenever you're in a space where someone is brittle, the supple will always prevail. It's like the water goes where no man can go. It will enter and it will reveal all. And so with resistance, a resistance of a fear emotional state will reside in, a possession, as opposed to this true understanding and oneness, that center point of the Wu Ji that reveals the love, the unlimited love that tapped into all things, the mother. And so, yeah, it's so beautiful how you say it, because it really is like we speak on the same things, and the result is here. And I've only ever once in 30 years had an entity. I was doing an exercise 3 hours. This thing was like, it had to do with a young girl who was, murdered and raped by her uncle. And then the entity took over her body and presented herself as her. And then she was basically haunting a house that someone that I had to do a healing on owned the house, and it was taunting the husband and wife in the middle of the night. And they didn't know, neither one of them shared the information, because it was getting deep inside their psyche, and they were having separate experiences with the same entity, luring them into a certain part of the house where this murder took place. And then, in the end, the exhuming of that energy didn't lead to a demolishing of that actual permeation of the property itself. I don't normally get there, but there are places throughout the world where 1 or 2 times it's a bulldozing of that. It's so permeated within to everything that the only way is to destroy it, return it back to its original state, for it to come full circle in that contracting expansion that we speak of, that bellowing effect. All is one, one is all. But generally speaking, that doesn't happen. Yeah, it can go south real fast. It's like, oh, it's little Sarah. Da, da, da. Yeah. And I mean, you can't make this stuff up, because these energies really are part of whatever the psyche is of that individual's experience. So they call it in, like, if you ever see that movie Candyman, that horror film, don't say Candyman 3 times, or he's going to turn up. I mean, there's this reality that people feed into, right? They feed into it, and then it becomes palpable, because your attention intention feeds into and embeds and imprints that very information, and then it becomes realized as this. Now people don't understand the magnitude of it. They think they're weak and they have no potential, yet they manifest the emotional state they're in all the time. I can't manifest anything. Well, you're angry right now, so you manifest that instantaneously. So if you can do that, you can manifest love, you can manifest $1 million, you can be in the present moment. It's just being guided back and returned to remembering who you are, which comes in the form of hanging out with Jerry here and having him reveal it all to you. Hallelujah. I'm excited. Yeah. So brother, this has been an incredible conversation today about all these things. I think we could go on, but I'm pretty sure I want to be mindful of your time, because I just keep going. I'm void of time and space. I forgot to tell you I have a reputation of that. The longest podcast, 7.5 hours. That's how it works. So, wow. So you move around the world. Now, I'm also going to offer you this because I have my own retreat center out here. I'm in Vegas. I'm out in Nevada. I have a 3-acre retreat center. I have people fly in from all over the place, and we do retreats with collaborations with people. I would love to invite you to do your thing and bring it to Nevada whenever you're in America again. It would be awesome. I would
love to.
That.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And
so
we'll
and sort out some dates.
Yeah, sort out some dates and get you down here and blow people's minds, because I take people out to the natural form pyramids out here in the desert, and they're wild, man. They're insane in that frequency. So you just get into it. You briefly mentioned to it. I know you go deep into it, but we go into body dowsing within Taoism, and you're able to basically decipher the ley lines, the power centers, the vortices, and that's part of attuning yourself, right? I mean, it's just like anything else. It's a system within a psychological hierarchy. As a psychiatrist or a hypnotherapist, they would call it ideomotor response. It's a divination, a transmission through your body that gives you an idea of what it is. And it's that sort of like somatic, visceral realization, and boom. But man, there's just crazy stuff out here. Where would you say you've traveled around the world teaching people this incredible stuff? Where is your favorite place to go?
I don't even know, bro. I've been to loads of places. I mean, so many. One of my favorite places is Maria, which is like the south point on the Christ consciousness grid opposite Egypt. It's a little island in the Pacific Islands. It's not far from Tahiti. You got to get a boat from Tahiti to Maria. It's a beautiful place. The energy there's amazing. It's a small island, but I loved it. I went there with the children. There was a blue whale and her baby calf in the water. We got in. We were like 5 meters away from them in the water. Had some amazing experiences there. The energy's just off the chart. There's a Stargate there. Like it's beautiful. I've been to so many good places. I mean, like this point that you're talking about, like ley lines and grid work. And for me, this is where it gets really exciting. I love this topic, and it comes in kind of 2 pieces. Like we can do this grid work multidimensionally. We can use holographic crystals. We can use holographic pieces of technology, and we can set these grids up all over the planet. Sometimes we as humans need to go to certain places to actually anchor the code in, because the codes are in us. And, I've had so many experiences like this, I mean, I remember, a few years back, I was having a dream. And in this dream, I see a little blue plate. And and I'm in Cashel Castle in Ireland. Ireland's another amazing place. And I wake up in the morning, and I go onto my laptop, and Amazon just pops up. I wasn't even on Amazon. It just pops up, and there's a little blue plate. It was the same plate as in my dream. So anyway, I bought it, and I knew I had to go to Ireland. So anyway, I got the blue plate, stuck it in my pocket, jumped on a plane, gone. I flew to Waterford in Ireland, spent the night in the hotel, hired a car, drove up to Cashel the next day. It was a nice sunny day. The castle's on top of a hill, and the car park's at the bottom. So I park the car, I walk up, I go in to the castle, and I see the Queen of England's been there, a couple of years before. I'm thinking, okay, the Queen of England. So I know there's some dark lineages there. And anyway, so I'm walking around Cashel Castle, and they were doing a little bit of renovation. And I go down this one sort of like opening, and there's a man walking towards me with his hood up. He looks massive. And anyway, I get closer and closer. I look at him, and he's like white. He's like a ghoul, like he wasn't human. Anyway, well, something's going on, So I walk down the end of this like sort of passageway. It's a dead end. So I've got to go back out. So I turn around, I'm walking back out. I walk out, he's not there. I walk out onto the front, and it's on a hill, and there's a slope going down. As I walk across, this energy picks me up, slams me into the floor. And this light comes through my chest, right down into the grids, and it breaks this dark ley line between the Vatican and Cashel Castle. So I'm in this space. I don't even know how long I'm in there for. All of this stuff's taking place. There's all these beings helping. It was like a big process. I come around and I'm like dazed, like I know I've been punched in the face and 10 ecstasy tablets at the same time. It was wild, you know, the energy was intense. Anyway, I get up and I look down the hill and into a field, and there's a little baby calf. There's no other cows around. So anyway, I run down the side of the hill, I jump the fence, and I'm chasing this baby calf through the field. It's running away from me, and it's running down this hedge line. And it turns and goes down past another hedge. I can't see it, so I'm running to the ends of the hedge line. When I get there, I turn, and the little baby calf is looking at me, and it's got its foot on a rock. She's looking at me like that. That's it. I walk up to it. It doesn't move. It takes its hoof off the rock. I pick up the rock, and there's a little hole in the ground perfect for the blue plate. So I get the blue plate, I stick it in the ground, bury it, cover it over, and I just hear the voice, you can go home now. So anyway, I go back, I get in the car, I drove back and fly back home. So these kind of things happen all the time. As you know, when you're on this kind of mission, the universe is always guiding you. It's always getting you to go here or go there. I mean, I've got so many of these stories I can tell you, but, you know, whenever I travel, I'm placing grids in different kind of points all around the planet. There's certain people that hold crystals for me. I'm burying them in the ground sometimes. You know, I'm also setting up holographic dimensional grids, you know, to hold light in specific sequences. So yeah, I mean, this grid work stuff's amazing. I love it, you know, and it's actually a really important part of why we're here, because the grids, the crystalline grids, it's what a lot of the wars are over. A lot of the wars are over these crystalline grids, the stargates, interdimensional, multidimensional travel. People think that wars are over religion and money and all of this stuff. It's got nothing to do with that. That's just a human byproduct of war. But the actual real reasons that we're going to war is because of interdimensional, multidimensional travel, energy, that sort of stuff. Power and control on a different level, you know? Still power and control, but on a different level.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got to get you down to Vegas. I'm going through hotels and identifying the power centers, the vortices, all the ley lines, and then the entities that reside there and what they're doing. So people could go and visit them and sample those energies, because it's crazy, man. And so even the geometry, which people don't seem to get, like when someone builds a casino, they've paid someone like myself to create a feng shui flow that either robs you of your money or gives you money. Now, generally speaking, they're designing these buildings to rob you of every cent that you possess. And so if you go in a certain way, certain things will happen to you. So I give people a direct path of how they follow this map of how to obtain some prosperity or a win within the casino, because the casino, everything right down to the shapes, the tiles on the floor, to how things are formatted within the actual structure, is going to manipulate you to get an outcome that they're looking for. And if you think they're not paying for this, and the charge you and I get right now is that realization they pay someone to do it. And it's mind-boggling to me, because there's a huge amount of entities. Like you were down at Luxor, the Luxor event, that has got like bodies laid out there from about 70 years ago. Let's think about that a little clearly. Then they've got an ancient and burial site from American Indians. And then they brought in all these entities from Egypt, because they basically created a beacon by formatting this pyramid, and they brought all these entities in using that. It's wild. It's crazy, man. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't realize what's going on behind the scenes, you know, and I think it's important for people to get clued up. Yeah. And really kind of, you know, and it comes back to this present state of awareness. When you're still, it opens up. But if you want to walk around distracted, you're never going to experience it. The experience is always there to be had. But if you're not still enough, you're just going to walk straight through it. I mean, I remember when we went to Luxor, it was last year, wasn't it? It was the end of last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And the energy was proper heavy, very heavy, you know.
Right.
So you need to go into those spaces, understanding what you're walking into. Otherwise, you're going to bring a whole heap of crap out from there with you, you know.
Yeah.
So you've got to know how to navigate the lands. You've got to know how to navigate the grids, like you're saying. It's a skill set. That's all it is, and it's a skill set. Anyone can learn it. Anyone can remember it, and we've all done it on so many planets and stars. It's just that here, when we come to Earth, we get blank slated. So, you know, our memory, it's very difficult to have the recall to go in and remember these abilities unless you're doing that deep inner work and, you know, crossing over to the other side here and there to pull back the info.
Well, you're, you know, in your own story, your last story, I mean, you didn't even question the information. Like, I need to take this. I got to go here. I'm being told what to do. I got to go all the way down here. I found this calf with its hoof on a stone. You open it up, you put the plate in. It's affecting a rippling effect within the grid. You know, I mean, you and I should be writing books about this stuff. I don't even, and I got thousands. I had Latsu take me down to the bowels of Chinatown in San Francisco and revealed ancient tools that I'd been using in past lives that some guy had in his antique store from when he first came over from China back in the 1940s, held it there the whole time. And then I turn up and go, I know you have all these Taoist tools. He's like, you're that guy that they said was going to come for this stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's now. And it's like this old dude, he goes, I've been holding these since the 1940s, since I came out. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. You can't. It's just wild. And even through that, they revealed. Have you ever heard of the Terracotta Warriors?
No.
Okay, so they're a warrior that they revealed within one of the first emperors of China was buried with 10,000 terracotta warriors. There's actually more than that. There's over 126,000, but they found 10,000 of them around his tomb. And they're terracotta warriors. Every single one has a different expression on their face. Now, on a deep exploration, you know, the Jade Emperor, one of my teachers, gave me the information about that they were fused. One of the Taoist alchemists turned them into terracotta. They were humans that were transformed into terracotta, and they were there to guard the emperor. And so they took me down to Chinatown. I go into this antique store that's like as old as the day is long, and this guy pulls out a false wall and reveals 3 of them that he's had since he came over from China back in the 50s or something like that. I'm like, hang on a second, weren't they discovered in the 70s? What are you? And like, they're for real. And he's got a false wall. These things are like probably, I don't know how many hundreds of pounds each. And they're like double the size of a human man. And they're in the wall of his antique store. You can't make this stuff. It's like something out of Big Trouble in Little China. You know what I mean? You ever seen that movie? Yeah. It's crazy. And this is what happens when you know, and your information is coming in, you know. And man, we have to do this again, my friend. We definitely have to do this again.
Yeah, we can get another date in the diary and just continue the dialogue. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all your social under this. It's going to go out on YouTube in a week or two, then across every platform after that. My biggest thing is I want all my students, all my OGs, everyone from that subscribes and is part of. It's again, we have the parallel. You have an app. I have an app that does exactly that. It's called the Way 126. It's like you can't make this stuff up. I swear to God. And it is. It's like a journey. You evoke this stuff. Now I know your stuff is imprinted. My stuff is imprinted, and it activates people's energy centers. It's like boom, you get it done. Everyone that follows me, I want you to go out and experience what Jerry is offering. I want you to look into it. He and I are going to have a conversation. I want him to come out to Las Vegas in our retreat center, and I want him to teach people this stuff. So we need to work out when that's going to work. But I want you to get out here and do your thing, because more people need to be remembering who they are. And this is just a profound way to do that. And I'm just really grateful that you, whatever your guides did to wake you up in this lifetime, my friend, it's incredible. You can't make this stuff up. Cannot. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I appreciate, you know, you giving me the time, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you and all your people, and just massive love, bro. And to everyone that's listening, just massive respect, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you just, this is a type of stuff that everyone needs to resonate with, whatever it is that resonate, and they will hear it and they will know. And you've got such an incredible message and method to do just that. It's like, come and get some. That's what they need to do. Come and get that frequency, that resonance, and embody it. And it's nothing more powerful. I noticed you did a couple, sometimes you do retreats, like mushroom retreats and things like that. Is that mostly in Sweden, or do you do it in a certain place?
We did a plant medicine retreat, which was Aya and psilocybin, literally the February just gone in the US.
Oh, okay.
We did a psilocybin retreat in Egypt in March, and then we're going to be in Holland for a 10-day retreat in November, December this year.
Wow.
Yeah. I love the medicine. The medicine's amazing, you know?
Yeah, it's just another access point, another gateway.
Yeah.
But I would say, just for the audience's understanding of this, find Jerry to do that stuff. Don't just go with some wackadoo that you find on the internet that says they're going to show you the meaning of life. Actually be in a space that is really sacred, that you know, and you'll know, just like we're sharing this charge right now, you know that Jerry holds that space. And so that's where you want to be when you're revealing that sort of gateway, is in a really sacred, holy space that will reveal it for you in a way that is profoundly expansive, not something that could be problematic and go south real fast, which I've heard a few stories of that nature with people that are not, they don't get it. They're chasing it. They're like, oh, I've heard this is how it do. Let's do it. And they're so offline, they're not resonating with the highest frequency like Jerry's, and getting an environment where it's really profound and you amplify the present moment. Does that make sense? Have you've experienced this type of stuff before?
Yeah, I mean, being in a medicine ceremony, you know, there's so much going on. I mean, you've got the frequency of the medicine, you've got star magic, you've got the whole field's open. You know, it's open in a way that everybody's experiencing, whether it's 20, 30 people in the space, and you've got to have a really good team. You got to be really good at what you're doing. You got to know how to deal with the space, the grids, the people, all at the same time, and you've got to stay alert. You know, there can't be any moments when you falter. And you know, coming into a kind of medicine container like ours, you've not just got the medicine working, you got the star magic frequency working. So it's a whole other level again. And, you know, coming into a container like ours, you know, you need to be ready for it. You know, not everybody can handle it. It's not for everybody. You got to really ask yourself, do I really want to step into this container? Because this container is it's going to strip you naked. It's going to bring up everything you need to work on. And if you're not ready to work through that, don't bother coming. You know, if you are, then we'll meet you halfway and we'll sit by you and stand by you and guide you and work through every step of the way and love you through the process. But again, it comes back to that light so bright in these spaces, and it's going to reveal to you things that you never knew existed in the field, within yourself. And if you're not ready and prepared, it can be a shock to the system. And it's the same like life. I mean, life produces shocks to the system 24/7, 365. Those that are prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally can handle it, even if they've never dealt with that stuff before. Doesn't matter. If you're prepared psychologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you can deal with anything. Any relationship stuff, any business stuff, any health stuff. But if you're one of these people that gets blown around in the wind like a feather, you know, hoping that someone's going to come and save you, and you're not doing the daily work, coming into an environment like that, you're going to get smashed. So you've got to come prepared. And if you come prepared, you're going to get, it's going to be amazing. There's no words to describe what happens. You know, I mean, I've seen people's eyesight come back in these things. I've seen people, you know, getting up and walking. I mean, all sorts of different things. People that have been on heart medication for 30 years and the doctors are saying you're dying, you're dying. You know, we've gone in and found it's something so simple. You know, we've back to normal, no more medication. They're fine and dandy. Like, you know, so much can happen in a short period of time. And the medicine is so good because it brings up the blueprint of the individual, like deciphers and assesses their codex. Like, say on the first night, goes in on the second night, it just works through it, you know. So it's just working through, cuts past everything logical, gets the brains out of the way, and it's just working on such a deep level. And then you've got facilitators like us going around and working too, and it's just so transformational. So transformational. Like, we take our cars to the garage to get them serviced, oil filters changed, windscreen wipers, brake fluid, whatever it is. We need to take our cars to an ayahuasca ceremony once a year, and our cars are our bodies, you know.
Yeah, amen to that, brother. Now, this is so exciting, brother. I want to just thank you for your time today. I really am very grateful that you shared it with me, and you took the time out of. I want people to know this guy is like a vapor. He's impossible to. It's not impossible. Finally, I must have sat with my manifestation witchery to finally get it happening. But you know, you have a very full schedule, which, as it should be. You're sharing this with the world, and I'm just really grateful that you've taken the time out today.
Thank you so much, brother. It's been an honor, and you know, just thank you to everyone that's been listening.
Yeah, and I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.